Tonight's show is a little different. No, Greg, we don't believe you. Oh, yeah, it's a little different. No, tonight's show will be a little bit different. I mean, there's some things will be the same. I'm going to go back, out there in a minute, and then I'm going to come back out, and it's going to go, Craig Ferguson, and I'm going to go, oh, great day for America, and the audience is going to pretend I haven't been here, and you'll be like, why is he always come out then, and yet he's already been on? And all that will be the same. But my only guest tonight will be my friend, Stephen Fry. Now, I warn you, Stephen is an outspoken man. He has views which you may find difficult and you may find make you angry or upset. Let this be the point where I say to you, maybe this is a good night to get an early night. Or maybe it's like, oh, do I really want to get upset? If you don't mind, engaging in a bit of verbal gymnastics or mental gymnastics with Stephen, then please stay. I'd love you to stay, because he's a fascinating, brilliant, intelligent man. And also, it's Arthur Conan Doyle's birthday. Where else are you going to be on a night like this? But as the evening goes on, we will talk about stuff which is challenging to talk about and think about, and it won't all be cheeky monkeys, and it won't all be there'll be a bit of that, but especially because I'm very excited about the monologue I'm going to do about Arthur Conan Doyle's birthday. You're going to love it. But but once you get past that, things are going to really pick up. All I'm saying is this. This is a late-night show, and sometimes I take advantage of that. I do hope you will too. Join me after this.
It's hard to stay up, it's been a long, long day, and you got the Sandman at the door. But hang on, leave the TV on, and let's do it anyway. It's okay, you can always sleep through work tomorrow, okay? Hey, hey, tomorrow's just your future yesterday.
The Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson, sponsored by Allegra Allergy Relief. Use as directed. Ladies and gentlemen, Craig Ferguson.
Welcome to Los Angeles, California. Welcome to the Late Late Show. I'm your host, Stephen Ferguson. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Wow. Wow. All right, that's enough. Really, that's enough. Enough. Great. What up? Can you believe this?
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. It's a great day for America, everybody. I am very excited. This is the day I wait for all year, Jeff.
I know.
Really? Why do I wait for it then?
You tell me every year.
All right, no, this is the day, May 22nd now, because the World Series of Poker begins today. Poker fans everywhere have all had the same reaction. It's not. The reason why I get excited about today, it's a big anniversary for Scottish literary giants. Alas, not me. On this day in 1859, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was born in Edinburgh, the creator of Sherlock Holmes. You know I love Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, yes.
I do love Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, yes.
I think we're a bit like Sherlock Holmes and Watson.
Yes, elementary, my dear Ferguson.
Anyway, happy birthday, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Do we have a graphic for Conan Doyle's birthday? Oh, wow. Okay. Arthur Conan Doyle, of course, a man of many talents. He was a writer and a doctor as well. If he was around today, he'd probably be a frequent guest on Oprah. He was known for being a great writer, but not known for being a great doctor. I wonder if that means he was a crap doctor. He probably was.
Yeah, probably.
He was probably too busy writing to be a good... How was your visit to Dr. Conan Doyle? He's a good writer, but my testicles are very sore. You went for an ingrown toenail. I know. He's a terrible doctor.
That was Craig playing both the part of the doctor and the patient.
No, that was the two people. Oh, never mind. Anyway, do we have a picture of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle? There he is. See, that's a moustache. Even Wilfred Brimley would be like, dial it back a bit. Dial it back a bit. How would he say that?
Diabetes.
Yeah. For many years, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle held the title of Scotland's best moustache. Then along came Susan Boyle. It's a joke anyway. It's a joke. Of course.
It's a joke.
So, by that same logic, you can say any objectionable, terrible thing you want and then just add, it's a joke at the end and everything's all right?
Yeah.
Okay. The first Sherlock Holmes book came out in 1887. You know, he never actually says in any of the books, elementary, my dear Watson. He doesn't say that.
No.
He did say, as if turd for brains, but he never said... Now, in the novel, Sherlock Holmes was a cocaine addict, but he still solved crimes. Now, I would argue that cocaine does not give you crime-solving abilities. I have tried cocaine once or twice. And the only thing I've ever tried to solve whilst I was on cocaine was how to get more cocaine. The case of how do we get more cocaine?
Oh, yeah. I remember that one.
Yeah. That's how you ended up the way you are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Some people think Sherlock Holmes was a real person, and these people are called idiots. Although I have to admit, I thought the address in London was real. Holmes famously lived and worked at 221B Baker Street, so when I was in London, I tried to find it. But there's no 221B, it's just a bank. I was walking up and down the street for an hour being judged by snooty English bankers.
Snooty English
Yeah, they were judging me. They were like, I say, look at that drunk Scotsman. Let's pelt him with excrement. That's how you know they're bankers. They're carrying around handfuls of excrement, apparently. Yes, what is the exchange rate today? Don't tell me! Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was a very interesting guy, though. He was very into the paranormal. He was fascinated by magic. He firmly believed that magicians had real supernatural powers. And his best friend was Harry Houdini. And Houdini wouldn't tell him. He was like, Houdini would say, he'd say, look, it's a trick. He would say, I'm not really sawing the lady in half. It's a mirror with little fake feet in the end. And Arthur Conan Doyle was like, la, 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 la. That's how he used to talk.
Yeah.
La, 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 I'm a terrible doctor. In 1917, two little girls in England became celebrities because they took a photograph of fairies in their garden. Yeah. We have the actual picture. Look at the actual... Now, that's the actual picture that made them famous. That it looks pretty fake, or as our graphics department would call that, our best work ever. But Arthur Conan Doyle was convinced the picture was real. He even wrote a book about it in 1921 called The Coming of the Fairies. You should probably do your own joke right there. That would be the way to approach this, don't you think?
No.
Yeah, you do it yourself.
Yeah.
The public's fascination with detective work and forensics, so that can all be traced back to Sherlock Holmes. There'd be no CSI without Sherlock Holmes. You know, back in the days, Holmes didn't have a black light to investigate a crime scene, though. If he wanted to analyze a stain, he had to use the sniff test. How's that? Watson. Jeff and I should reenact the sniff test. Right, well, Jeff and I will reenact it. I'll be Sherlock Holmes by the fire, right?
All right, yeah.
And you be Dr. Watson reading Larry King's autobiography.
Right, all right. Okay.
All right. I'm afraid there seems to be an absence of clues in this particular case, Watson.
Oh, dear, Holmes.
We do have one particular clue, though. I wonder if you could help me decipher it.
Certainly, anything. You want me to do the smell test?
We, I'm afraid, are going to have to do the old smell test.
All right.
Do that again. That's quite, I've never seen you do that before. Tell me, what are your impressions of my finger? I mean, what did you smell?
For a minute there, I thought you wanted me to do an impression of your finger.
Well, could you do an impression of my finger?
Certainly. Hello, I'm Craig's finger.
Oh, all right, very good.
You don't want
No,
to
no,
know what I've been.
No, you'd have to be Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, all right.
Sorry about that.
All right, so. What? Why do you open your mouth when you smell things?
Getting a good whiff.
All right. So, what do you smell?
I smell gorilla ass.
That's just where you're wrong, Watson. You see, you smell, but you do not observe. At first, it smells like gorilla ass, but smell again. Does a gorilla have cinnamon in his ass?
My goodness, you're
No.
right.
So what is it now?
It's fairy ass. Fairy. With wings.
Why do you make everything dirty? You make everything
wings.
dirty.
It's a wings, a
You
flying
ruined it.
fairy.
I was trying to do a classic
No, man, it's like a
reenactment of
fairy, like a
Sir Arthur
mythical...
Conan Doyle for his
What's wrong with
birthday,
you, man?
and you ruined it.
Oh, I'm worried. Yeah, my finger.
Go to the commercial break.
All right. We'll be right back after this.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. My first and my only guest this evening is a wonderful man who's my friend, and I'm always happy when he's in Los Angeles, and that's why we are here tonight. Normally, we wouldn't be doing a show on May the 22nd. But Stephen's in town. The lovely Stephen Fry, everybody. Stephen Fry. Stephen, it's lovely to see you. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
It's a joy. It's nice to see you and nice to see Jeff. And talking of big penises.
Yes.
I had a wonderful pickup line the other day, which is, I've got 8 inches for you. Admittedly, in 2 installments.
That's nice.
That's rather sweet.
Were
don't
you the
think?
subject of this
No,
pickup line?
no, I just thought it was a good one. Apparently, women like wit and modesty and self-deprecation in men and aren't interested in large penises.
I think they're a little bit interested in large penises. I think there's
You did that?
Well, well, that's the amount of interest, not the size of the
Oh, I see.
penis. So I think they're they're
Yeah.
probably like this much interested in this much penis. I think. I don't know. I'm not an expert on.
No, nor am I.
The.
No, nor am I.
All right then.
No. Sorry.
How you know? Since the last time you were here, I saw your documentary, or I've seen your. What is the right way to say it? Seen it or saw?
I saw.
Observed
Yeah.
your documentary
Yeah.
series
Watched,
on the United States, where you covered the entire 50 states.
Each state, that's
Each
right.
state, and you drove around them in a London taxi.
I did, yes. The 48
fantastic.
contiguous were
No,
in
right, yeah,
taxi
the
and then
40.
flew to Alaska and Hawaii.
Yeah, it's
But-
very difficult to get to Hawaii by taxi.
Though
Yeah.
oddly enough, I just finished a show called Gadget Man, in which I converted my taxi to an amphibious vehicle and drove it along the Thames. We put a propeller in the back. We drove it
That's-
off the road onto the Thames in
Like
the middle
James
of London.
Bond, like-
exactly, yeah.
Wow, that's-
At one point I was overtaken by a duck, so it wasn't fantastically effective. But it was the dream of a lifetime, and oddly no one seems to have done it, certainly on British television. Simply regard America as not a whole, but as 50 states.
It was an interesting thing to watch for me, because I've lived here for a long time, and I thought, I can't believe he went there and didn't go there. You know, it's like if you go to someone's hometown and you didn't go to the donut shop, what the hell's wrong with you? Did a lot of people get angry?
Usually the famous donut shop.
Right, exactly. Did people get angry with you about you didn't go to their...
Naturally, you can't do everything. I mean, it would have had to have been an hour for each state, which is great. You could easily do an hour on Texas or an hour on California. Slightly harder to do an hour on Delaware, say, or North Dakota, with all due respect to both of them, which are
Right, yeah.
places.
My favorite, I think it was Iowa, when you went, Iowa is a lovely place with lovely things. And then we moved right on. I was like, you can't. People in Iowa are like, what the hell? Where are you going? We haven't shown you the donut shop.
The most amazing day, which just shows what documentary filming can be like, was when we started in Asheville, North Carolina, which is a very charming, very
I've been there,
beautiful city, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we went up in a hot air balloon and looked over the Smoky Mountains, the Blue Ridge Mountains. It was a gorgeous autumn, fall day with a blaze of scarlet and yellow maple, and leaves of the most shiningly gorgeous colour that just speak New England, and it was heavenly. And
Yeah,
the air was
lovely.
clean, and we lowered ourselves down, and I picked a maple leaf off a tree, and then we dropped, and then we drove all the way to Knoxville in Tennessee.
Been there too.
To the campus of the University of Tennessee. And I hadn't really been told about this.
Yeah.
There was a woman waiting for me by a chain link fence. I got out of the cab, and the camera crew followed me, and she said, "Can you put on these gloves, please?" And I put on some latex gloves and some sort of paper shoes with the, little, and then she opened a padlock of this, and I could see razor wire at the top, and she opened the gate, and I went in, and the gate was closed, and then I was aware of sort of things around me. It was a kind of garden, but there were sort of white bits and black bits, and I wasn't quite sure. And she said, "Welcome to this facility." And she said, "I'm going to introduce you to some individuals." She used the word individual of each of these, what turned out to be dead bodies. And it was the famous, in its own world, body farm, where people who leave their bodies to science, the cadavers are then put through all kinds of extraordinary experiences. And this is to help forensic anthropology.
You know, rate of decomposition
Bruce
and stuff.
Gus Grissom in CSI, the original CSI,
Right.
for example, who could date a time of death according to the insect larvae that had begun to start.
Forensic science, like
Yeah,
Sherlock Holmes, for example.
exactly.
Yeah.
But they learned all these kind of time of death things about the gruesome stuff of the grubs and the maggots in the body from this single place. It was the first of its kind. So what they'd often do is they'd take a body, they put it wrap it in a carpet, put it in the trunk of a car for 3 days, and then bury it in the woods.
And this is legal?
Yeah, because that's so often what a murderer does. He kills someone in blind
I
panic,
see, right.
wraps them in a carpet, puts them in the trunk of his car, gets blind drunk for 3 days, and then drives to the woods and buries it.
Right.
And there's a very particular pattern and so sometimes the police need to prove that someone was murdered or wasn't.
By following.
Yeah.
Would you, when in the sure a long time from now when you expire, would you have your body go through that?
That's the question I asked myself, because the thing that will never leave you, it just won't ever leave you, is the smell.
Yeah.
The smell of mortality is a most unpleasant thing. We're all lucky enough, almost all of us are lucky enough, never to have seen a human body, let alone smelt one in a state of decomposition.
Right.
And I went in never having seen a dead body. I'm not a Catholic, so I hadn't seen one in a casket.
Right.
I hadn't seen an embalmed one, And I left having seen about 200, some of which were literally, there was one that had been put in a sort of dumper, skip, whatever you call them, sort of big thing, rubbish, trash thing, and it was basically just a load of bones in a brown soup.
Did this
and the
traumatize
smell
you?
was like Satan clawing his way up through my nostrils and trying to tear my brain out.
It's horrifying.
It is horrifying, but on the other hand, there's a strange optimism that comes over you that you realise how we are what Burroughs called a soft machine, and it breaks down instantly, and it goes back into the earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. It goes into the worms, and that's it. And it just makes you feel all the more determined to keep the bits that work,
going,
surprisingly, that don't rot.
Are you a believer in an afterlife? Does that
No, which is to say, I'm along with Plato and the Greeks. Anyone who tells you that they know what happens to you after you die is either a liar or a fool.
Yeah, I must say it does seem to be a bit of guesswork going on, if you ask me.
Absolutely. I mean, the number of people who've said, "Honey, when I'm dead, I'll come back and visit you," and they happen not to.
This has happened to you personally, or just
Not
you?
personally,
Yeah, right.
But so people said to me, "I saw a ghost," and I go, "No, you didn't, dear."
Yeah. I wonder.
didn't.
Are you? I mean, it does seem to. Are you an atheist? May
Yeah, I suppose I am. I take my cue from the great philosopher Bertrand Russell, who
I love Bertrand
is
Russell.
wonderful.
Yes.
I advise anybody just to have a fun time on
His
YouTube.
autobiography?
Isn't it
Oh, it's
extraordinary?
hilarious.
It's very, very funny.
Yeah.
And he spoke in this beautiful, high, piping, extremely aristocratic voice.
Yeah.
He was Earl Russell, in fact. And he, he came from a very distinguished family. His aunt danced with Napoleon, and he knew Robert Browning, and I met a man who knew him, which makes that connection
That's
really
very nice,
weird.
yeah.
But he was asked why he was an atheist, and he said, surely you mean agnostic, because you don't know there isn't a God.
Right.
He said, no, I don't know there isn't a God. That's quite true. He said, but I also don't know that there isn't a giant teapot orbiting Venus in such an angle and way that we will never see it. However, I am perfectly entitled to base my life on the supposition that such a teapot does not exist and not to allow my life to be determined by those who do believe in such a teapot. And that is my view about God.
I like Carl Sagan's thing about atheism, which he said, when people say, is there a God or is there not a God, he said, the question is too vague. You know, you have to define what do you mean by this. His idea, you know, him saying the idea of a large white man with a beard deciding what goes on in people's individual lives seemed absurd. But the idea that there was an intelligence beyond what he understood, the St. Augustine's kind of, you know, to understand the mind of God is like putting the ocean into a cup. That seems like a little more...
But it's a very new way of looking at the world, and indeed much of the world, most of the world, are animists, and they have many gods, and I think that's much more attractive. Why there should be one, it's very recent. There was one pharaoh who decided... Akhenaten, exactly, and he was killed for it.
Yes, he was. They were very upset with
the priests decided...
He was Tutankhamun's dad.
That's right.
Because Tutankhamun's original name was Tutankhaten. And then he changed it back to Tutankhamun because his father was an idiot.
He's good.
Yes.
He's good.
Yes, I remember hearing about that.
King Tut's, exactly.
Yeah.
And he was the first, on record at least, as a monotheist who thought there was one God. But it's not natural to believe in one God. I would think quite natural to believe in a sort of principle of trees and a principle of rivers, and in the way that the Greeks did, which makes fantastic storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, it does, but people get very cross if you kind of suggest that perhaps
there's a passive-aggressive victim status that religious people now have, which is that they go, oh, these fundamental atheists. Well, I'm not a fundamentalist atheist. Being an atheist doesn't mean anything to me. I don't want anybody else to be an atheist. I have no interest in spreading atheism any more than if there was a word to describe someone who doesn't believe in the tooth fairy, a flimpist, for example, then I would have to say I'm a flimpist. But being a flimpist is meaningless. It just means I don't believe in the tooth fairy.
Right.
It doesn't involve a set of values. It doesn't involve... My set of values comes from humanism, from the Enlightenment, from the very set of values that built this country. The set of values that of Thomas Paine and Thomas Jefferson and people who actually thought for themselves and didn't take any text as gospel or any which Marxists did and which many religions do. I just think it's terrible to be told what's the case.
Well, the whole idea is it's meant to be free thought here.
Yeah,
isn't it?
free thought.
Yeah, I think it is.
Exactly.
We'll take a break so you can freely enjoy the products advertised, and we'll be right back. We'll be right back with Stephen Fry. Welcome back. I'm here with the lovely Stephen Fry. We were talking about is there or is there not a God? You might want to go to another channel if that bothers you right now. I tell you what I do think about religion, which I think atheists lack, and I think that they should get on, is some theatre. You know, some...
Completely agree. Ritual and
something
ceremony.
big and flashy that
Love
says, I am an atheist, and they have, you know, like smoke and, you know, and curtains.
Well, there's a church in London where they have atheist services every Sunday. And,
really?
Yeah, and quite good people attend them. And far more than the nearby ordinary church, which has a little cluster of 10 people going in. And
yes, but popularity doesn't...
No, it doesn't.
All right, yeah.
But they sing Queen songs. They sing Superstition by Stevie Wonder. They'll get handed the words, you know, just like at a service, and then someone will come up and talk about Dirac's theory of matter and antimatter, for example, and why it is one of the most stunning theories ever evolved by mankind on the nature of the universe. And so people will talk about science and about discoveries about, you know, animal behavior and so on, as well as by wonder and joy and the remarkable nature of things.
What about personal adversity, though? For example, if you're in a state of fear, do you find yourself slipping a little bit then and thinking, well, if there really,
you've got to have a focus, a name to give your, you know. So of course, if I was in a plane that was going,
Yeah.
I'd be going, God, please, please, God.
Yeah.
Of course I would. I mean, there's a great Jewish joke, and my mother's Jewish, so technically I'm Jewish. And
Why is that funny to you? It's absolutely true.
I'm a
You're like,
technical
oh,
Jew.
Stephen, you're not. Oh, yes, he is. My oldest son,
I'm not a
his mother
Jew,
is-
I'm a Jewish.
Yeah, right, there you
Not
are.
the whole hog. Yeah, someone once said.
Hog, yeah, hog,
you
no,
never
no,
had. But there's a story of this couple whose mother has come with them on their holiday, and they've got a baby, and the grandmother has left to look after the little bunny baby with a little hat sitting on the beach, and they go off and eat. She says, "Go eat first, and, you know, I'll look after the baby." And suddenly this huge wave swells up and takes the baby, it snatches it away.
This is awful.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
And the mother calls and says, "I've been a bad Jewess all my life. I've never gone to temple. I'm so bad. Please, though, if you bring back the baby, I will worship you. I will be so good. I'll keep 2 fridges. I'll do everything right." And then there's another wave, swells, and the baby is deposited back on the beach. And the grandmother looks down and goes, "And the hat?"
Do you ever worry about, because people get so aggressive, to be honest, about their religion, about what they believe, and you're quite outspoken. I mean, you're an out gay man. You say what you think, and you live by what you believe.
Yes.
And do you ever think, I just can't get into an argument with anyone today?
I had that experience just a few days ago. I only arrived in America 3 days ago, and the week before I'd been in St. Petersburg in Russia, where they just passed
I've been there. It's a beautiful city.
Lovely city.
Yeah.
But they've passed a very unfortunate law which makes it illegal to promote homosexuality, whatever that means.
Right.
In theory, it means that you can't tell children about Tchaikovsky, one of the great heroes of that city, because he was a gay man.
Right.
He wrote clearly in his diary that he was. You can't say, for example, that part of his identity may be in his music, because that would be promoting somehow homosexuality. And people have been locked up. There was a lawyer who tested it, who was actually straight, saying, "My wife and I have as best friends a lesbian couple, and we think they should be treated equally and that their lives are valuable." And he was, was immediately arrested. So the man Milanov who brought this through, I interviewed him, and as it happens, I'm very big in Russia, so I was chased by this huge press pack into his office. We eventually sort of got rid of them, and he had the same arguments. I've been doing this documentary for 2 years on and off when I've had spare time, called Out There, about being gay in different parts of the world.
Right.
And I'd been in Uganda, and I'd been in India, and I'd been in Brazil, and I'd been here in the United States. And there's a common thread amongst homophobes. One is that you choose to be gay.
Right.
I can imagine choosing to be gay in San Francisco or in London or Manchester, but choosing to be gay in a country like Uganda, where they shoot you and beat you up and burn your house, seems a very odd choice. The other
Why would that be a problem?
Anyway,
if you choose to be gay. I mean, I choose to be gay. Okay,
fair
fine.
enough.
All right, yeah.
It's bizarre. The second one is that they insist on their absolutely evangelical, all gay people, on recruiting others to be gay,
Yes.
which is bizarre. And the third is that they're exactly the same as paedophiles. There's no difference. I actually got a Ugandan minister to say on camera, he's the Minister of Ethics and Integrity. It's the only such ministry in the world. And I said to him, look, even if these 3 utterly false supports on which you base your homophobia were true, which they aren't, there's so much more to worry about in your country than the odd gay person going to bed with the other gay person.
Right.
For example, you have almost an epidemic of child rape in this country, which is just frightening. And he said, but it is the right kind of child rape.
Wow. He said that?
I said that was on camera. Do you know that was on camera? He said, yes. He said, can you just explain what you meant? He said, well, it is men raping girls, which is natural. So you just... Where do you begin? And where do you begin? And this... so it has tried my patience a little. And in Brazil, there was a senator who was fiercely, and his big argument was that it was unnatural. And fortunately, I'd armed myself with a few friends who were zoologists who gave me a number between 400 odd and 2,000 odd. It was very hard for them to be more specific. Examples of homosexual behavior observed in the animal kingdom. And as I put to him, there's only one example ever been observed in the animal kingdom of homophobia, and that's in the human race. So which of us is unnatural?
That's fascinating. What was his answer?
He had no answer to that at all. He said, I don't want to talk about that's nothing, it's not relevant. So he then started talking about the Bible. And of course, as you know, the Bible is far more interested in circumcision and slavery and what you may do with the daughters of the people you have conquered than it is in homosexuality, which he mentions, I think, only 3 times.
Yeah. I have to stop you there. I have to stop you there just so that we can go to a commercial break and delight the sponsors with our conversation. Sorry. We'll be right back, everyone. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm here with the lovely Stephen Fry, who's just informed me not only is it Arthur Conan Doyle's birthday today, but it is
Richard Wagner.
Wagner, the composer, who I don't...
200 to the day.
I know nothing about Wagner, nothing at all, except I'm a bit frightened of him because didn't the Nazis like him a lot?
Yes, he didn't marry Natalie Wood, in case you were thinking of...
That's Robert Wagner.
That's Robert Wagner. Just to be absolutely clear. He was a German composer born in Leipzig on 22nd of May, 1813, and he was a towering genius who cast a shadow over the entire 19th and 20th centuries in music and art. On the other hand, he was also, if I may say so, a howling... Ooh la la! He was a dreadful man.
Yeah.
And I went out to make a film about him because from an early age, I was obsessed by his music. It is so powerful, so remarkable. It gets parts of you that no other musician that I'd ever heard does. I mean, I love all kinds of music, serious classical music, or indeed, you know, rock music, pop music, jazz, all kinds. But there's something about Wagner that was so special. And yet, as I said earlier, with a Jewish mother, this man who specifically wrote an article, a notorious pamphlet called On Jewishness and Music, in which he attacked Jews quite horribly, specifically Mendelssohn, the composer, and Meyerbeer, who was the biggest composer of that period, though is now largely forgotten. And but it was very deep and visceral. It was how repulsive Jews were, and that was bad enough. To read this great genius writing such things. But what was worse was that 50 years after he died, Adolf Hitler came to power, and Hitler had already been many times to Bayreuth, the theatre that Wagner built, and was a friend of Wagner's descendants and family. And then called him, they called him the future Siegfried, the savior of Germany. And every Nuremberg rally, Hitler would go to Nuremberg and have the Meistersingers from Nuremberg, the Master Singers, one of Wagner's great operas, played. So I went and made this film, and it was painful because I had to confront a lot of the problems where if you love some art, some work, but you hate
the artist.
Yeah. You know, it's like there is somewhere in Genesis. Is it? You know, it's the fruit. By their fruit shall you know them. You know, in other words, the tree may be ugly and gnarled, but if the fruit is sweet and delicious, you don't question it. But you do question it. And I saw this amazing woman called Anita Walter Wallfisch, Lasker Wallfisch, who had, as a little girl, been at Auschwitz, and she had this astonishing talent on the cello, so she played for the Kapelle, the sort of little band at Auschwitz, in the female version, which was conducted by a niece or cousin, I think, of Mahler, the composers. And that's what saved her from death, because the rest of her family, who weren't so talented, all perished. And she told me about this one occasion which just sent chills through me. She said, I was sitting picking lice from a friend's scalp, and the camp doctor walked in. You probably heard of him. His name was Josef Mengele.
Good Lord.
I said, God, I've certainly heard of him.
One of the most evil person who ever lived.
Exactly. Yeah. And I said, what did you see? He said, well, my bowels turned to water. I was just terrified because we all knew that people would disappear into surgery and they were never seen again, and or they were mutilated beyond belief, and there were screams come from his surgery. And I thought, oh God, he wants to find out what makes the brain of a musician or something. He's going to cut me open. And so I looked at him and trembled, and he pointed to my instrument, snapped his finger, and I thought, oh, thank God, he just wants me to play. So I said, what happened? She said, I followed him into his office, and he pointed me to the corner, and I played. And I said, do you remember what you played? She said, of course I remember. It was Träumerei, which is a piece by Schumann, which is transcendently beautiful. And I said, and when it finished, I said, he waved his hand away. And I said, did he thank you? And he said, oh, you sweet boy, you still don't really understand, do you? And I said, well, I'm just thinking, you know, an intelligent man and as girl plays beautiful music. He said, do you thank your telephone or your washing machine? We weren't human.
Good Lord.
Jews were not human. That is why they could do what they did to us. Because they really, really did not think we were human. And that was because they had had 10 years of Goebbels and Streicher and these films and this propaganda and
but the kernel which you're talking about coming from Wagner and the anti-Semitism
that's
from
right,
that
the
period.
glory of the Aryan race.
Yeah.
And this Untermenschen, these literally is German for subhumans, and that's what the Jews were Untermenschen or Affenmenschen, ape men. And if you do that for a generation, you just make some population feel that the other population are not human. They can do anything to them. That's what the Holocaust proves. But anyway, so
Wagner,
put that against a radiant piece of music that is about love and is anti-power and is anti-fascist. So that was a really. This has become a very heavy example of the Late Late Show. But I think the format can take it.
I think it's fine. Look, they can go away if they don't like it. I'm fine, but
we can talk about rosy nipples at another point.
I think rosy nipples have a place, but that place is tucked away for the evening. I think it's appropriate to talk about anything you want to talk about. It's very late at night, But what I find fascinating is the idea that you are not affected, your appreciation of the art is not affected. Because I was like, oh, ay caramba, ooh.
Yeah.
He'd take his beautiful music and stick it, crikey, Tootsie Fruits.
I do. Every single time I do until I hear it. And then as soon as I hear it, it takes me somewhere so beautiful, so profound, so extraordinary. He was a pygmy compared to the art he made, and that's often the case. And in the film, the Bayreuth Festival, the Festspielhaus, the festival playhouse that he founded to make his own music, his own theatre, a unique theatre with this. The orchestra is under the stage, and it is the only one that's allowed to break any safety laws, so that when the ring starts, the 4 nights of the Ring of the Nibelungen, this sequence of dramas begins, you're in complete blackness. There are no exit signs. There's no spillage of light from the orchestra because it's under the stage where it blends with the singers. And for this deep blackness, this note sounds out, and then the river, the Rhine, appears to glitter across the stage slowly, and it's as if the world is being born. And it's an amazing moment. And it's moments like that just shiver. They pass that test that Glenn Miller had, you know, that James Stewart said, you know, I want to hear that sound.
You know, that sound.
Yeah. And he got it.
But do you think it's best not to know about the artists of the art that you like, the musicians and painters? Because there's been a couple of that have done some nice pictures as well. I mean, you have to be...
So true.
You know,
so true. Some, they've beaten their wives, they've betrayed, they've done all kinds of dreadful things. It's really, really hard to
I don't have, and this is in no way a reflection on having you here, but there's some people I won't have in the show because I'm in such awe of what they do. Like David Bowie has not been here and will not be here. No. Not that he's what, you know, can I be here? But yeah, you're like, can I be on your show, right? But I don't want him to come here because I am such a fan. I'd hate him to be
a letdown.
Yeah, I don't want that. And so...
in the same way, I would hate it if someone told me that Laurel and Hardy didn't get on and never spoke to each other.
I have good news.
As it happens, I know they did love each other. But if someone told me that, it would be horrible.
Stephen, it's always a joy talking to you. I'm afraid we're out of time.
Can't believe I had a most magnificent time too.
Yeah, I feel that we should have included the robot skeleton more, but...
I'm sorry we didn't. I'm sorry.
Quite a lot.
Stephen Fry, everyone, we'll be right back.
If you're watching Craig at home, you're missing half the fun. Consider this your formal invitation to laugh live in our studio audience at a taping of The Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson. Please give us a call at 323-570-0059 or visit our website at llstickets.com.
What did we learn on the show tonight, Craig?
Well, we learned a lot about Wagner, didn't we? Listen, if anything happened tonight that upset you, I'm sorry that you get upset by people talking, but I still believe people talking and saying what they think and saying how they feel is a good idea. So, you'll be fine. Go to sleep.